Good morning. I'm Sarah Bowman. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm thrilled to have you with us today for this week's Conversations with Common Sense, where we tap into some of our favorite people, experts that can offer real-time advice for handling dilemmas you might be experiencing during this quarantine right now. As you probably know, for over 16 years, Common Sense has been helping families navigate the increasingly complicated digital world. And so in response to COVID-19, we launched a free platform at Common Sense that you might have found already called wideopenschool.org. We founded this along with some of the biggest names in media and technology and education, such as Sesame Street, National Geographic, PBS Kids, Khan Academy, Google, Apple, and many more. This is a site that's a one-stop shop for you, for teachers and for educators and for parents who are looking right now for curated resources for preschoolers through 12th grade. So after this podcast, please check it out, wideopenschool.org. I'm in Los Angeles, and our panelists are in Massachusetts and Northern California today. I'm so excited to introduce them to you. They're two wonderful friends of Common Sense, and we're going to have a conversation today about how you can connect something very mundane like chores, something you could maybe do this summer when you have a little extra time, to how your children can build a sense of responsibility about being in the world itself. So it's more than just about chores, and we have two great people to talk about this today. Just an aside, all three of us have older children, so we have a little bit of an ability to look backwards and know that these things are valuable. So first up is, raise your hand, Catherine Newman, mom of a 20 and 17-year-old in Amherst, Massachusetts. Catherine is the etiquette columnist for Real Simple magazine, a regular contributor to the New York Times, to Parents Magazine, and to Oprah's Magazine, as well as many, many others. And this conversation today was really sparked by the fact that she has a brand new book called How to Be a Person. 65, How to Be a Person, 65 useful, no, let me get it right because it's so cute. 65 hugely useful, super important skills to learn before you're grown up. She is joined today with a longtime friend of hers, a parenting colleague. They met while writing together or writing separately in the parenting space, Asha Dornfest. There's a wave from Asha, who's in Berkeley or something. You probably know Asha perhaps from her website many years called Parent Hacks, and then I guess you wrote a book about it called Parent Hacks 134 Genius Shortcuts for Life with Kids. Oh my God, you got the book. Clearly, I don't have that book. Also, she wrote a book called Minimalist Parenting. Do you have that? No.
And also, it's out of reach.
She's co-host with Christine Coe of a podcast called Edit Your Life, and she lives in Portland, Oregon, even though that's not where she is right now. So here's the format really quickly. They're going to talk for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to be taking comments through the chat function. We'll do our best to have these guys answer them. I'm going to disappear, so you just get them. But one of the cute things today is that these two have actually never met in person, but you will tell from this conversation that they're greatly allied through their writing and through conversations like this. And that's sort of one of the beautiful things about what we're going through right now. Anyway, here you guys are, and I'm going to duck out until the end, but thank you so much from Common Sense for being part of this today.
Thank you, Sarah.
What a pleasure. It's like somebody else has given us a way to basically sit together and have this conversation.
I know, it's so great. And we're both users of Common Sense, especially when our kids were little.
So true.
Asha and I met in the internet sense when we have kids the exact same ages, and we met when the kids were little, and you were writing the Ashaland.
Oh my gosh.
Column.
Old school bloggers. And let me just say, we met because really I was a fan of Catherine's writing, her original blogging over at babycenter.com. That was how we met. And I was like, oh, there's a soulmate.
And you
didn't know it at the time.
But I really did know it. And I was just laughing today because I was looking at we have show notes we're kind of working from. And I kept thinking stuff was my stuff, but then it was your stuff. And I love that because we're so, it's just been a pleasure always to have known you.
Yeah. And so what that means is that we have kids exactly the same age. I also have a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. And so I think what's really wonderful about this conversation about life skills is that we're sort of at similar stages along the way, and we seem to have discovered some similar things, I think, as that you and I have figured that out in this conversation.
I know, it's really true.
Right.
Yeah, especially with grown kids who've been more in the house than we anticipated, and then looking back a little bit.
Right.
Tell me what the pandemics. I have to ask the Pollyanna silver lining question.
Yeah.
Tell me about what opportunities you have created during this time with your kids in terms of imparting. We're just at the final stages of scaffolding with our kids, and I'm just wondering what this has been like for you and what you see as the advantages.
Well, I mean, here we are sheltering in place. Many of us, I know you and I both have had college kids coming home, basically grown kids coming home and joining us in a way that was unexpected. And I know many of you watching probably have young kids. And so many of us, it's summer now, but so many of us had kids home in ways that were not, it's not the usual routine. And, I won't use the term silver lining because I think that just maybe is a little too cheerful for what we're going
Of course. Yeah.
Which is not to say, but I know exactly what you mean, which is that there are benefits, there are things that are happening that are positive that couldn't have happened any other way. And to me, in terms of life skills, it's that our kids, young and old, are really seeing the full 360 degrees of what it takes to run a household. I think they are understanding the interdependence of family members more than they ever would before. And so chores, it's not to say that they now cheerfully do their chores, but I think they understand that life skills and chores really are part of what helps a whole family function. So I just think that is a benefit, the fact that we're understanding more about each other's lives simply because we're seeing more.
Yeah, I love that. You talk about pulling back the veil of all the invisible labor in a household.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. And I feel like that moved me so much because sometimes I feel like we expect kids, especially older kids, to kind of be in it with us, to see what we're doing and to do it. And the truth is, I'm not always sure we've shown them what it is we're doing behind the scenes. I think a lot of the household stuff happens when they're at school or when they're out with their friends. And I loved that you talked about this time as a time when everyone was in the house. Everyone sees everything that goes into a household, including our conversations, especially if there are two adults in the house, conversations between the adults about who's going to do what and how the household is going to run, which they're going to have those conversations one day. So I love that. And I know, I'm wondering about how you feel like at the age that our kids are now, how do you feel like you reflect when you look back at trying to get kids involved in sort of household work? I'm just wondering if there's more that's come up now that you are glad you did, that you would do differently, that just sort of the hindsight question a little bit, but also the present question about what we're doing now.
Well, I'm totally going to flip this question back on you because I'm really interested in your answer to this too. Here's what I would say. A few things. First of all, I feel like it was really hard to give my kids chores when they were little. It was that classic thing of, gosh, it's like so much easier to do it myself. And I don't know what kind of system is the right system. And did I mess up? And should I have given them? I felt like there were so many questions that I had as a parent about how to actually give them chores. And somehow it was very difficult. And I thought, I was sure that I messed up. And I think we all mess up on, parenting things. It's a work in progress. I will say now that they're older and I can look back that they learned certain skills, they didn't learn certain skills. And as they get older and become motivated to be independent, they they can learn very quickly. And so I think one of the things looking back that I realize is that I can just relax a little bit about not worrying that I didn't do it perfectly, that there are many opportunities to keep imparting those life skills. I mean, that is one of the things that I would say. I feel like in some ways, strangely, this pandemic shelter-in-place period has been a bit of a do-over for us. What about you? I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I have such mixed feelings about that because I feel the exact same way as you about how organically things end up unfolding, where you stress because your kid doesn't ride the carousel one year and then the next year they ride the carousel, that kind of stuff, where you're always like, why are you the one kid who can't, blah, blah, blah. And then they just are moving on their own time frame. And I have learned to trust that process, same as you. And I totally agree that they become motivated by the pull/threat of independence. And I worry all the time that about how chores fits into that. Like my kids learned to drive because they wanted to be independent in that way. And they learned to, order a pizza, use the phone to order a pizza. But I also feel like, I know we both have this, but I especially feel as a parent of a boy who's 20, and we know that that household skills still, it's a very gendered occupation. We know that women still do the bulk of the housework. They do almost as much of we do almost as much of the housework as women now as our mothers did. And I worry that if kids, and here in parentheses, I am saying men, aren't explicitly taught these skills, they might not be motivated to learn them because if someone else does them, good enough, which seems to be the world we live in. So I guess Asha, I feel like it's that mix for me of let it unfold. And now during the quarantine, it's very out on the table what it is we do. And I'm explicitly asking for more help now because I am also seeing a 20-year-old kid who, it turns out, didn't know some of the stuff went on, just like you say.
Okay, so first of all, the fact that you brought up, the gendered reality of chores is hugely important. And I'm so glad you mentioned that. The other thing I'm really glad you mentioned is that, you, as one of the adults in the family, specifically mom, are asking for help. I think that what that does is, first of all, it puts everybody on notice that, hey, it's not just an automatic thing that I do these things as the adult, as a woman, as mom. It also models how to ask for help and how to, there's sort of a meta there. And I do think that's important. And, it's funny, I agree that letting things unfold is so much a big part of my parenting, but we do have to make choices. We do make choices. So I don't ever want to imply that we just sort of sit back and it'll all just work out for the best, because we get to make choices. And I think, and this is another time when I think this is, what's, again, I don't want to say wonderful, but what's really useful about this time is that not only do kids, no matter what their gender, see, they're learning about the jobs to do, but they're also learning about the roles people play in their family. But they're also seeing, let's talk about it. It's writ large in our society right now because we're interdependent with our neighbors. We're interdependent with essential workers. And if you really think about the protests that are happening out in the world, we're seeing that some people have the privilege to do more work and less work. And so this notion that there are so many ways to talk about it. And I think the fact that our kids are seeing all of this or in some way taking it in gives us so many ways to make that direct connection with a chore. That actually clearing your table after dinner is connected to the fact that there are these big things happening out in the world. And I think that is, the more concrete you can make those connections, the better.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I feel like that's exactly right. And I always think, I've probably said this to you when we were talking, but I always think, like, if you were raising a kid to live on a deserted island, it wouldn't really matter what you taught them because they'd figure it all out on their own. Whatever they needed to survive, they would just do it. And I feel like, in fact, independence for me is not as big a deal as interdependence, as you were saying. And that, in fact, what we're doing is raising people who, as kids and then as adults, will be in community at home, in community in their neighborhood, and in a bigger community. And I, just because you brought up the protests, I was just thinking when you said that, how even something like being at a huge protest, which we were recently, where everyone's wearing a mask, for me, that's interdependence in a million different ways. That's us committing to keeping each other from getting sick. That's everybody committed to protecting vulnerable people in the community. So I just feel like this moment of all these things coming together, just like you said, it exposes kind of the ways that we're connected.
Mm-hmm.
And then to bring it back to something like cleaning the toilet, it's not insane, even though it sounds crazy, but like ultimately kids are going to be home and they're going to see that there's all this work that has to be done, just like there's, activism to do in the world. So I'm just with you 100% on that.
Mm-hmm. And I think that kids, even little kids, obviously, there's age appropriate conversation about how you make these sort of philosophical maybe connections. I mean, these are pretty big issues we're talking about, but I think kids, they want to step into the world. They want what they do to be relevant. Little kids are so powerless, and we know what toddlers are doing when they're throwing tantrums. They're trying to grab some control over their life. Yep. And I think that teaching kids life skills, starting with chores, it starts getting kids acquainted with their own competence. It gets kids acquainted with the fact that they can actually have a positive effect on their surroundings. They can have a positive effect on the relationships with the people that they're in community with, starting with their family. I mean, it's sort of like charity begins at home. I mean, that's basically what it is. And and I think that exactly what you're saying, this is the most concrete way for kids to start learning that. And I think kids get it. They might not talk about it, but they get it on a very deep level. And when they know that, wow, something that I do actually has an impact on the world, that is very satisfying, even while they're in the middle of the work, in the middle of complaining about having to, clean the toilet. In the end, that's where it's going to go for them, I believe.
So you saying that, of course, I write down every single thing you say, but that reminds me actually of two things. One is that I sort of forgot this, but when my kids were little, we had one of those Montessori catalogs. You remember that was like all the things your 3-year-old could do, and they could like cut a banana with a whatever.
Totally. And I love those lists.
And honestly, before I had kids, I was like, oh my God, like a kid's going to want to, have their own little dustpan. But oh my gosh, did they not want to have their own little dustpan? My kids had all these I'm now remembering, because then there was this long period where it was a little hard to get them to do bigger stuff like the dishes. But there was a beautiful early stage where they had little things they loved to do. They loved to make centerpieces for the table. Like I actually really believe, and my book's for older kids, but with little kids, I feel like you start with I always call them the glamour jobs, but the like making a centerpiece for a holiday table, or maybe making name tags, or anything that's like arranging the flowers. That's kind of a glam job, but then they're proud of it. I feel like those are the greatest. But there's also tangible stuff. Like it's very, you can teach a pretty little kid to sweep a floor, and the floor is covered in pine needles and cat hair, and then it's not. And that's a very rewarding experience, a quite organically rewarding experience. And I talked to this great neuroscientist. I've talked to her a million times because I love to call her, but her name's Kelly Lambert, and she has this theory about how when you do useful things, your brain releases dopamine. And that's to reward you for basically sustaining life, So if you make food, or if you clean or make clothes or stack wood, your brain rewards you with a kind of feel-good chemical. And she describes that as an antidote to this kind of moment where kids spend a lot of time consuming media on their phone. That instead of having that consumer scrolling experience, you do something, your brain rewards you for it, and you actually feel good, which is, I think, one of the ways that, we use that phrase, acquainted with competence, but I feel like it totally speaks to that for me.
Well, and I think, so a couple things that brings up for me. First of all, I think it's so great that you talk about the fact that there are feel-good chemicals associated with chores and useful things, because let's be honest, no one wants to do chores. I mean, okay, maybe a kid might want to, sweep in the dustpan, but my kids never cheerfully volunteered to do the dishes. So let's just say that, when the glam jobs are over, the toilet still needs to get cleaned. Yeah. And it's, I think as parents, we can feel confident that even though they don't enjoy it, there is something good and rewarding and satisfying that's happening internally that they might not recognize right away. It's sort of like it shows up very gradually, but it's a really important part of them learning this process. So I think it's really important for parents to give themselves permission to give their kids the crap jobs that they don't want to do. Like, you don't have to just give them jobs that they enjoy. And you also you're not failing if they complain, and you have to remind them that, again, it's the bigger picture is that there is something good happening inside. So I think I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I think this is actually just a good moment for me to also point out that my podcast co-host Christine and my dear friend and co-author, Minimalist Parenting co-author, as part of one of our podcast episodes, we were talking about life skills, and she came up with an amazing list of 100 life skills that you can teach your kid in 5 minutes or less. Oh, there's an awesome slide. Yeah. Okay, this is great.
I know, I love this.
So I just wanted to put that out there, just as for, because Catherine's book is geared toward slightly older kids, and this is geared toward, slightly younger kids, although they're sort of across the board.
And so, it does end with vote, Asha. I just love that.
Oh, well, Christine is a genius, and she's also incredible at teaching her kids life skills. So I just want to point that out, and I will let you know that there's a printable of that. There's a graphic of that on our website at edityourlifeshow.com/life skills. So you can just print out that list and stick it on your fridge. So just wanted you to know that's out there.
Yeah, I know. I love that. And it makes me also remember that I left making ice out of my book, which is so crazy because it's like my biggest human pet peeve is the empty ice tray put back in the freezer.
True. What do you think are some of the most important life skills, like from your perspective? What do you think kids, you want your kids to know, you think other kids should know?
Well, I did originally pitch that book. So this is my book. We have a slide of the cover, but it's called How to Be a Person. And when I first pitched this book, I pitched it. I had gone to the library to get out a giant. I assumed there was like a photographic encyclopedia of chores for children because my daughter doesn't like me to explain stuff to her. She's 17 and she's like the same as she was when she was 2. And she's like, I'll learn it myself, So I went to get the book and there wasn't a book. So I pitched this book of like photograph chores. I pictured it being 1,000 pages long. And the publisher wisely didn't want that book. They wanted a broader book. So for me, the hearts of it are the chorey chores. And I think of those as the ones you describe as like the bad chores, not the glam chores. So for me, that's, I think we have a slide of like, it's really basic stuff. It's like wiping the table and counters. How do you do that, right? You don't just sweep the crumbs onto the floor, you cup your hand under it. This is paired here with tightening a screw, which is just a random skill that I feel like you actually need to have in the world. But But so for me, it's sort of broken down between the chores, which I think are really important. How to clean a bathroom. It's really hard to ask a beloved child to clean a bathroom. It truly is. And my 20-year-old used my book when I asked him. So just because this is for middle schoolers doesn't mean your 20-year-old won't have it propped open on the counter to see how to clean a bathroom. And then these are the other.
Can I just interject and
Yeah.
say that kids love having something to actually look? I mean, I have seen kids put Post-it notes in parent hacks, and I'm sure your book.
Oh no,
it's genius.
But my kids posted this to death when they were younger. I mean, it's like
it's
covered.
great.
Yeah.
Well, your book is needed, and it's, I'm sure, so appreciated. Maybe not by your own children, but by other children.
And then the other thing that we were planning to get around to talking about is communication, which I think for both of us, teaching kids communication skills is, for me, it was the thing I most didn't want them to leave home without. How do you ask for something over an email? I talk about it all the time because I do work with college students who don't know how to write an email to say, hey, my paper's going to be late, or they just will, ghost you basically. Mm-hmm. So I want kids to know how to communicate, how to take responsibility if they hurt someone's feelings, how to apologize for screwing up, how to thank somebody, how to express gratitude, how, all those skills. And then how to contact your political representatives. Again, this is where the Asha has, I'm going to just cite you, Asha, because you described it so beautifully, but Asha was talking about the sort of physical manifestation of the outward rings of you teach your kid to weed your flower garden. And then while they're out there, they might notice that your elderly neighbor's flower garden needs weeding, and they might weed that garden. And then they might notice that actually your community garden is being endangered by a new building they're putting in. And so you might need to think about that garden and just the ways, that's all, Asha, I'm just paraphrasing, the ways that kind of the ripples outward of the skills you learn. So for my kids, they learned really early how to contact their political representatives, partly because I want them to be citizens in the world, partly because it's great practice for making a phone call, writing an email. And now they are, I was joking that Ben's, even though it's not a joke because it was true, that Ben's first ever letter he wrote and put in an envelope and put in the mail was to Breyer's ice cream, because the fudge in our fudge ripple was almost invisible. And he wrote a letter of complaint and was rewarded with coupons, But now they're very, since the protests and the this very urgent Black Lives Mattering moment, they're very active contacting political representatives. Our town, the police in our town, they're very active communicating with our governor. And I feel like that kind of citizenship, it grows from the basic life skill of communication. It's that.
Oh, gosh, it's so exciting because, how exciting for a young person to realize that their voice actually can have an impact. And again, it's completely connected to everything that we've been talking about in our, when we're talking about life skills, but isn't communication, that's the thing that unlocks the door to everything else in their life. And so there are many favorite things about your book, How to Be a Person, but the thing that I appreciate most about it is that, yes, you got to learn to turn a screw and you got to learn how to wipe a table. But in the end, to take those skills out into the world, you have to be able to communicate about them. And you make that so clear in such a straightforward way that respects kids and their own motivation to do these things. But you really are very clear about that. That's important. And I think now more than ever, like, we can see that. And, sort of bringing it back to, this pandemic shelter in place, think about the communication and the negotiation that's having to happen between family members in order to get these things done. It's
Yeah.
all part and parcel of the same thing. And so that's why I think everybody should own How to Be a Person. Everyone has to buy that book, because it's that communication piece is just we know it, but somehow seeing it written out there in that lighthearted but direct way just brings it home for me.
Thank you.
It's really, I'm not just saying, I'm serious. I really think it was, anyway, she's the person to write that book, and it happened.
Thank you so much. I wrote both the men in my house, when they read the book for me, everybody proofread it, and Birdie was like really political about her proofreading. She's amazing, and had a million Post-its about stuff that, wasn't phrased in a way that sat well with her. And then Ben and Michael read it, my son and husband, and both of them put Post-its on that How to Apologize page that said, "I don't understand this."
And you're like, well, let me tell you. And you're just like, neutral face, neutral face.
I think they were just trying to make me laugh. That was so funny. They were like, what the? I think Ben Post-it said WTF. Anyways, we are taking questions. Is that now? Or are we still? I can't, sorry.
You know what? I know. Tell me.
Okay.
Do you want to tell me what your favorite parenting hack is?
Oh, you tell me your favorite parenting hack, because I know you thought about it.
Oh, I'm the worst. People ask me this question and I'm like, every time. But I know. I have so many favorites. Okay. One of my favorites, this one's a summer specific one. It's not a favorite, but it's so useful. And it speaks to life skills, which is, some of you watching this, I'm sure, have kiddie pools outside. Kiddie pools. Splashing little children. And every time, kiddie pools get leaves and pine needles and other yucky stuff in there, right? And you have to clean it. Well, you don't have to clean it. Give your kid one of those kitchen strainers, those ones with the handle, and let them just go through and clean the kiddie pool. Yeah. They love doing it, and you don't have to do it. And they have a clean pool. That's a good parenting hack.
That's a really good parenting hack. I love that. Mine are so like corny and weird. I feel like that's like, you could just go out right now and do that. I feel like mine aren't really hacks. They're just like, and the truth is, I'm worried that I've done this too much, but that's a parenthetical. I like to make things that kids might balk at really, really fun. So, still after the holidays, we have like a thank you note writing party in my house. This is 20 and 17. Okay, these are my kids. And it used to be that I would make a big pot of tea, like almond sunset tea, and I'd make a big bowl of popcorn, and we'd put on everyone's favorite music. Like, we'd listen to the entire Hamilton soundtrack or whatever. And we would have really nice stationery and great stamps, and we would just sit and do them all of us. We would just bang them out. And it was like really, really fun. And it's so weird and corny, and it sounds improbable, but that's the truth. We still do it because it's so pleasurable to us to sit, and only now, like, my son has a glass of wine and, we're listening to Kendrick Lamar or whatever, but it's so good.
Okay. I wonder if anyone watching this is like nodding with me thinking, why haven't I done that? That's amazing. Because thank you notes. It's funny. I had to sell thank you notes a little bit with my son, and just say, look, if you write a thank you note, this person that receives it will never forget you. I'm telling you, it is currency in the world. I had to put it in slightly black and white terms, but he's the best note writer in the world.
That's it.
And then it happens. But man, it could have been like a fun activity. That would have been really fun. Anyway, seriously, everyone watching that, like, write that one down and do it. That seems like fun. Seriously.
Okay, we have questions. I'm going to ask. Wait, am I taking the first question or asking?
I don't know. Let's see.
Okay.
Yes, I think yes, you take it.
I love what you said about gendered roles in the household. How can we start early to seed boys helping out equally with girls? Well, a great question. I really worked. I mean, what we know we're fighting against is biases that we don't even know we have. And so I think always erring on the side of assuming that the culture has so infiltrated our way of being and thinking that we're in danger of treating boys and girls differently. And I really tried to raise my kids with the same sets of responsibilities. So not expecting, I guess not, for one thing, not gendering chores if you can see that you're doing that, not have the boy do the mowing and the girl do the cleaning up, stuff like that, I think is really important. And like right now, because I'm so kind of overwhelmed with a house full that's been a house full since February, and my son's been making dinner one night a week, and I love that. Like to me, that already feels very ungendered, that that we have this 20-year-old boy in the house making us food. So I think just being aware of what could go wrong in terms of raising boys and girls, equally with expectations that they'll both participate in chores. Asha, do you have anything to add to that? I don't know.
All I would add to that would be, starting very young, really, I think it's important to explicitly talk about gender, as you're saying.
Yeah.
But I also think it's really a good thing to focus on a kid's interests and not sort it by gender for them. So, for example, if, say, your daughter has an interest that is typically socially, boyish, whatever that means, just follow that interest with your daughter, or go follow the interests wherever they lead, and don't attach any gender labels to it starting then, and that can extend to chores. So I think that helped us a lot, was just focusing on the interest, because the motivation always followed the interest. And so I felt like that was sometimes a good way to step around the question of gender. But I say that, but it's still important to bring it up explicitly, I think. Great question. All right, I'll read this one out. Okay, Cindy H asks, I've had to force myself to let 2 sons do chores and make small suggestions for improvement while they're doing it, and fix it later when they aren't paying attention, rather than do it myself. Okay. Yes. It's so much easier sometimes to do it ourselves, isn't it? I mean, and we have to, this is our challenge as parents, to sort of exercise that, that breathing that you have to do when the dishwasher's getting loaded incorrectly, or it's not even don't get you started with the dishwasher.
Yeah, no, that's actually Michael's particular thing. But yeah, okay. That sense of someone, when I don't know, when, garlic's supposed to be sliced thin and you're looking at like 1/2-inch pieces and you're just like, eyes on the prize,
Eyes on the prize. Yeah. And especially because, I mean, in real terms, as parents, our time is already so short. So the idea of having to spend more time reslicing the garlic is completely infuriating. But, when you say eyes on the prize is that competence.
Oh my God.
That, and not only that, the willingness to push through the difficulty of having to learn how to do something. Because I think that's the biggest thing of all, is that we're all terrible at something when we first start. All of us. None of us sliced the garlic correctly the first time, or the second time, or the 5th time. And when there's somebody biased, it's like, okay, you know what? Good. I would have done it a little more thinly. Maybe next time. If we can get ourselves to that place and realize that's what we're going for, then it gets a little easier. But it's hard. I mean, it's hard, Cindy. I hear you. It's really hard.
And it's an investment of time up front that, you will reap the rewards of, but you don't really have that time up front. So it's really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. All right, next question.
Okay, I don't know how you think about this. This is Jorby Williams. Do you think it is okay to incentivize chores with your kids, especially early on? And that, I know that people tie allowance to chores, or, pay for chores. I have always gone with, and then I'll pass it over because I don't know what you've gone with. I've always gone with, hey, I really need some help. Who can help me with this? And I and been really grateful for the help. That I know that sounds like the worst, lamest incentive where it's like, oh, mom said thank you. But that has worked well for me, just being transparent about needing a hand with something. Yeah. So we haven't tied chores to particular, unless it's a crazy chore. Like I asked somebody to do all the windows and I paid them $10 to do it, which now I look back and I'm like, that's really not paying enough. Score. But whatever. Yeah, I know the kids are going to be like, yeah, you kind of underbid. But what about you? What's been your feeling, Asha, about incentivizing?
Okay, so first, let me just step back and say, I think that there are many, many, many correct answers to this question, because I think, first of all, every family culture is different. Yep. You know, some people just talk in terms of like, this is the job, you get paid for the job. Like, yep. That's just how the family works. It's not a, right or wrong. And I think kids are different. Some kids are highly motivated by like a thank you, a heartfelt thank you. Some kids are just like, they don't notice. And it's not because they're bad, insensitive kids or you're a failed parent. I just think that different personalities respond to different things. And so I think we have lots of leeway to figure out what works for us. And I also think we can try one thing and it doesn't work, and we can try another thing and it may work. And, be
nimble. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So I think I don't have a straight,
Yeah.
But I will say that I think we did something similar to you, Catherine, and with varying levels of success. I will say So
can I just say that my friend Ron Lieber, who's a financial columnist for the New York Times, who I love, he's just great. But he once said to me, I was asking him about this very question, and he said his worry with financial incentive for work that needs to be done in the house is that a kid could say, actually, I don't really need the money, or there's nothing I want the money for, so I'm not going to do it. And if you've set it up that they do it for the money, then that doesn't give you a lot of leeway to talk about how you have to do it anyway. And I really appreciated that corrective, because for me, that if you suddenly have a kid who's like, yeah, I don't need money, so I'm tapping out here with the chores, that's not going to work either. Mm-hmm. So it's, again, just what you were saying, Asha, about being nimble. Try something, it doesn't work. You say, yeah, you know what? It doesn't work for us to pay you for chores for these reasons. We're going to do it differently now. That's fine.
Absolutely.
Oh,
hello.
Hi, kids. So that was so terrific. And you've been giving us all such great advice. I want to have you each give advice to your younger self as a closeout. I didn't tell you that was going to happen.
That's like the biggest surprise question in the world.
I know. Really good.
Duck it and give me another pack.
Here's what I would say. What I would say to my younger self is, it's going to be okay. That's what I would say. It's going to be okay. Trust yourself and just, course correct as you go along. That would be my advice.
It's so simple.
I love that. Mine would be similar. I think mine would be to worry less, that they were never going to sleep through the night, that they were never going to be able to be like out from under my pant leg, all the things I worried about that proved so not worrisome, that everything just happens with time.
Mm-hmm. And that it's okay, that we have chances to fix our things that we found we would do differently too. Like we can give ourselves some grace.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. I still get to apologize because my kids like to raise these old grievances with me. And I still get to apologize for things I did wrong like 15 years ago, thanks to their rehashing of them.
That's a good point. You never forget that.
So look forward to that, people.
Well, listen, I think we should put a camera on you two when you finally do meet. That was a lovely, lovely conversation.
I can't wait.
This was the best. This was really great. And thanks for the opportunity to do it.
Really.
our pleasure. We're glad to have you. I'm going to go back to my notes and read Catherine's book title again, How to Be a Person. It's in bookstores now, 65 hugely useful, super important skills to learn before you've grown up. I think that reminds me of, what was that book? Alexander's Terrible, Horrible.
No Good, Very Bad Day.
Yeah. And also Asha's book, Parent Hacks, which is obviously, I'm not sure when that was published, but still completely relevant. So thanks to you both. Loved having you in this conversation. Happy July. And to our audience, thanks for being here today. If you want to share the session with other parents and caregivers, it's on our website as well as the YouTube channel. And make sure that you don't miss our future live conversations. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to stay informed. We're going to take a few weeks off. I think we all need a few weeks off from these conversations, but we are coming back on Wednesday, July 15th, again at 10 a.m. Pacific, for another conversation about race. This one is called Tech in Support of Black Lives, Closing the Digital Divide and Shaping a Just Internet. So that's that. You can follow these two on their social platforms, and thank you both.
Thank you
so much. This was great.